Hey everybody, welcome to the Secret Origins podcast. I'm Towmey here this afternoon with Rikki Cloos and Nic Skovgaard from securehearts.com. I'm so excited to talk to you guys today about content creation. And I want to start off learning a little more about Secure Hearts. And I went on your guys' webpage today and loved what I saw about empowerment, healthy relationships, all this stuff. It's just wonderful. Could you guys start us off just talking about what Secure Hearts is all about?
Rikki, did you just have a nostalgia moment of you and I on a phone in 2020, trying to figure out what was going on?
Wow. Has it been that long already? Yeah, I definitely, I don't know. It's definitely still very much in the development stage. So maybe that's why it doesn't feel like I don't have nostalgia yet. We're in build mode, and
even just talking about Anxious Hearts Guide and what you started with originally and what you've built to now. I mean, that's wild, right? To think how far you've come in your content creation journey. I remember talking to you on the phone when you're like, Nic, I don't want to be on camera. That's never going to happen.
I did tell you that was never going to happen. And it's not that I like it now, but I definitely feel a lot more comfortable.
So Rikki, will you probably kick off just about where Anxious Hearts started with and where the Anxious Hearts Guide content started with, and then how with the book that came after it and everything else? Will you kind of dive in there and then I'll jump in as well?
Sure. Okay, cool. I will. I went through a rather traumatic divorce, as they all are. And I started reading lots and lots of books about attachment and psychology and relationships and communication, all the things that had gone wrong in my marriage. And that's all I wanted to talk about all the time. And I was really starting to bug my friends and family with it. But I knew that the stuff that I was reading about was helping me and could help other people. So I thought, wouldn't it be kind of fun if I started a little Instagram page and I just threw the stuff on there that I was learning to see if anybody else was interested in that too. And holy cow, were they interested. My posts were very passionate, but I also am kind of into research. I love psychology, so there was depth to them too. And the community kind of snowballed. It started out very, very small with just posts that were text-based, and eventually, Nic, you're definitely a big part to thank for this. Eventually, I jumped on the camera and started talking in some reels as well.
Will you highlight where you are now? You've got a whole bunch of credibility indicators, right? I mean, you've written a book, you've written multiple books technically. You have a huge following on social media. Will you kind of highlight some of that?
Sure. I think when the following was up around maybe 50,000 followers, you were trying to tell me, hey, I think you should write a book. It's great having the content on here for people to consume, but you're a writer. You knew I was a writer. So you were like, you should probably do a bigger, more ambitious project. I was skeptical, but I did it. And now I got to say that the Instagram page is at 170,000 followers now. And most of my content there is trying to push people toward the book, which is a more comprehensive writing about everything that I've learned. It's better content for them anyway if they're readers. And if they're not readers, they can get a lot just from the page as well.
So Rikki and I got connected originally in the AlterEgo Marketing stuff that I did here. Rikki was a designer. She served as a creative director for us. I mean, she was all involved. And I don't know that I can take credit for anything that got you to write the book. I do think I was the person who bullied you into publishing the book, right? That last 10% was just me on the phone going, Rikki, it's great. Publish it. Go.
No, I got to stop you right there, Nic. I was not going to create this thing. And you said, I think you should write a book. And I said, I think you're crazy. I love this conversation. And you said, Yeah, that's probably crazy. You'd have to have a writing degree and an audience and a research topic and graphic design skills and publishing skills. And I was like, holy cow, I am the perfect person to write a book. So that's all you, Nic.
I didn't know that. Like, that's really cool.
Yes.
So, like,
well, grab your
both
copy
kind of started
of
that
the
content journey. Like,
Guide.
one was me pressuring you, but two, like, I really went through a struggle in like the 2021, 2022 era of like, I knew I wanted to create content, but I was always really uncomfortable in the spotlight. I was really uncomfortable creating content for myself. I was really good at helping other people to do it, but I really struggled to like get to the point to hit record and actually record content for me, for myself. I struggled with that a lot. And I think that like watching your journey, Rikki, has been part of the reason why I'm going like, holy cow, I need to step on the gas and go. Like, there's opportunity here. This is something I'm passionate about, and it's worth doing.
Yeah.
And not because I've seen your success, but I've seen how many people you've affected positively with stuff that you didn't know that anyone cared about at one point before you started writing. And that's the part where I'm like, yes, I want to do this.
Yeah, I think just about anybody with a message that they're passionate about in a way that they can help people, probably there's room for you online to make content about that and see who you could help out.
I want to take that one step further, which is every single person on the planet has a story to tell, and there is room for some content where you are an expert, or at least in your niche within that world, you should be creating content. I fundamentally believe that there is no one on the planet who is like, no, not me. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't have an expertise enough. I believe that everyone should be creating content.
Yeah. No, and I really enjoy hearing you guys talk about secure hearts, because what a great topic to begin with, Rikki, because it's like, I mean, I'm speaking from like the woman perspective, that's huge right now. And it's like such a space where I feel like a lot of us, not just women, but we're just craving that type of content. But I think what you've done is like the dream of a lot of business owners who don't have as great of a topic. And I don't mean that to like let people down, but I think, you know, what I take from you is the authenticity part of it. And that's something I feel like we're going to talk a lot about today. And like things like for folks that are trying to do what you do, maybe don't have as deep of a topic, but they can do the authenticity. So I guess we'll start at that point and talk about the first thing I wanted to ask you guys is what content creation means to you and what that is, because a lot of people don't even understand what that means. So if you want to start us off, Rikki, with what is content creation?
Yeah, content is anything that the audience on my Instagram and TikTok pages can consume, whether that's a static post that they can read or a video that they can watch. I suppose both of those things have a comment section that they can interact with. And content creation is my production of those things that they're able to consume and interact with.
Yeah, and I think that I probably just want to widen that answer a little bit. I was like, I mean, technically speaking, content creation is creating any content that goes anywhere, right? You could be writing for your local newspaper. That's content creation.
Oh, that's fair.
The thing that shifted in, you know, the last decade is at one point, Anna, you come from a journalism background. Not everyone can be a journalist. The TV station will not let everyone go like, hey, I want to do a segment. They're like, Earl, no, sit back down. You've had too much to drink. No. But today, anyone can create a blog. Anyone can create a YouTube channel. Anyone can create a TikTok account. Anyone can create an Instagram following. And through interacting with other creators in your niche, whatever your topic is, and through things like hashtags, you can find a community in any single thing you care about. If you love to, play chess in a swimming pool, I promise you there is a community for that. Like, that is the thing that blows my mind on the internet, is the world is really, 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 really small. And if you have something that is really unique to you in a small town, so I live in Heron, Illinois, and if I decide I have this really weird thing that only I care about. So mine is red phone booths. Like I own a K6 red phone booth from London, and it is beautiful and I love it. I'm super excited about it. I don't know how many other red phone booth enthusiasts are in Heron, Illinois. There are maybe none, Probably not a lot, at least. I certainly can't, have a red phone booth club and show up. If I create content around red phone booths and put it on TikTok or Instagram, and I start a club and I start a blog and I build a website, there's a whole community that will come out of the woodwork to find it. And that's the thing I think that most people have missed. The change in the arc is, at one point, you had to go to journalism school and you had to get a degree, and then you had to get somebody to believe in your topic and green light it. Anna, you were probably pitching stories like, hey, I got this idea. And whoever's above you is like, nah, I don't want to do that one. But please, I really like this one. Where now it's like, hi, I'm Nic, guys. Do you like red phone booths? I love red phone booths. Let's go. Immediate, publish.
Absolutely. And, I think a lot of, we're speaking from, I'm asking you guys questions from the mindset of like small business owners that don't understand this as well as maybe some creatives. And I think some of the questions that pop in their mind is why would I be doing this? Why should if I own a lawnmower or a lawn mowing business, why should I create content? And I'm curious what you guys think.
Oh, I want to jump in and take this one first. Rikki, do you mind?
I know you do. No, go for it.
Advertising is a cost we pay for not being remarkable. Advertising is a price we pay for not being remarkable. This is like the most important concept for any small business, right? If you have $100 million for marketing, by God, go buy a Super Bowl commercials. Like if your goal is to get your paid message out to as many people as fast as possible, the answer is paid media. You can go spend the money, you can buy the click, you can buy the airtime, whatever it is, you can go pay for that. And it is the fastest vehicle to get a message in front of every person on planet Earth. However, if you're a small business, you almost certainly have more time than you have resources. You don't have the $100 million to go buy a campaign or hire an agency or build a website or launch a blog or hire a camera crew. I've never met a business owner who's like, yeah, I have enough marketing dollars. We are good. Never happened.
Right.
So what content creation allows you to do is create content around the thing you're an expert on for free or next to free, and have the opportunity to find the community, to find the customers who care about you. And I think that the best piece of advice I've ever been given about content creation for small business is quit trying to make the content and just be the content. If you are a lawn mowing company, you're a small business, go get you a tripod, set up the camera, and time lapse you mowing beautiful stripes in a lawn, set it to music, and run literally a TikTok video every day of you just mowing cool stripes in a cool yard, and put that on TikTok. Look at the pressure washing community. Online, it is massive. It works. And there's no reason to go make a 30-second car dealership commercial for your pressure washing business. Just pressure wash and record it and figure out what works through trial and error, because it doesn't cost you any money. Rikki, you want to add to that?
Could I play devil's advocate here just a little bit? I'm thinking of the businesses that are boring. I apologize for saying that. But if you're an accounting firm, I don't want to watch you sit and tallying numbers, right? Sit and tally up numbers for your clients. So I want to say to the small businesses who say, my job is boring. I'm not a pressure washer company. People aren't going to it's not going to be satisfying to watch me do my job. I have lots of friends online whose accounts are far larger than mine. And the commonality that I see between all of them is they find ways to be helpful. They find ways to be useful. If your content isn't entertaining or useful, get offline, right? Because nobody just wants to see you sit there. But
I would argue that every piece of content could be entertaining or useful. And as a business owner for a boring business, you might have to work for it to find what is entertaining or useful in your niche.
Oh, I agree.
But I do believe that it exists for every business owner.
Right. Well, let's take that accounting firm for example. Giving them the advice that they should just sit down and have people watch. Oh no, I totally agree with that. Super boring. But if I'm an accountant, I have useful advice for people on what they should be doing for their business or for their, for their tax return. There's all kinds of things that I can be passionate about.
Here's the answer,
that I can help people with.
On that particular one, everybody thinks they know how to use Excel until you watch somebody who really knows how to use Excel use Excel. And so if you're an accountant and you're a master at Excel, show me how to do something that I've always done the hardest way possible, and then show me the little snippet of code. Here's the formula I use to get this to whatever, collate this data and combine name, address, phone numbers, and put it in sentence case. Holy cow, that's mind-blowing. And you can do that in 30 seconds. And you already know how to do it. So all you have to do is teach it like you would teach a sixth grader. And if it doesn't work, keep going until you find something that does. And Rikki, I think you're probably one of the people who really taught me early on is like, just iterate, right? Try something. And if it doesn't work, try something else. And if you know your content and you're good at it, and you know there's somebody out there who has an audience for it, keep trying until you figure out what works, and listen to the social signals coming back that says like, hey, no one watched this. Huge. No one commented on it.
That's huge. Yes.
Don't do that anymore.
I attribute a large portion of the success that I've had in social media to the fact that I pay attention to what the people are throwing back at me. And if a video or a post doesn't perform, it doesn't get interaction, there aren't people telling me that it was helpful, I never make content like that again. It goes on the chopping block. It goes on my blacklist of, I know you're tempted to make content that looks like this again, but don't do that. That's not what people want. You follow the likes, you follow the advice from your followers, and just ride that train hard.
It's a really good point. And we'll dig into that one probably next. The next question I want to ask is from, folks like us that are all kind of in the creative sphere. Content creation means something to us. And then another thing to somebody that doesn't have experience from basics, making video, making a graphic. And Rikki, we'll start with you on this, but your recommendation, how do you even start like making a piece of content? How would you describe that to somebody who's not, they're a lawnmower. They don't write or anything?
Well, I think the internet's not new. So there's a lot of stuff that's already there that we can find and see what people are watching. I draw a lot of inspiration from my heroes, which are the large accounts that already seem to be helping people. It's very easy to go on their pages and see what people are talking about, what people are engaging with. And when I read those things or I watch those things, I think I've got something to say on that same topic. I've got something to add. I've got my own little twist that I can put on this that I can help people with. So that's a great place to start. If you're like, I think I'm boring, find somebody else who's doing something like you are and see what the audience wants from them.
This strategy is an SEO strategy as well. Is like you go to a website like Quora where people ask questions and you make videos answering the question. You write blogs answering the question.
Yeah.
And when you look at really large accounts are usually doing something right to get really large, but they're also really large, which means they can't cater to every single viewer. They're not responding to every comment. Maybe they're not answering questions completely. Maybe they're not making every piece of content. And so like, if you're going to the comment sections and you're seeing questions that are unanswered from a large account, great.
Yeah.
Make that content because people are asking for it, right? I think that that's one of those like marketing principles that applies to content creation really, really well is like, I could open a crab leg restaurant in Heron, Illinois, but nobody wants that. There's not enough demand to support it. No one cares, right? And so maybe it's the best crab leg restaurant in all of Illinois, but like, you really got to work hard. Now, if you're in a place that is already seeking that kind of thing, and there's already restaurants that are successful, and there's already an audience looking for that type of food, that's when you open a restaurant. I think that restaurants are the best examples because not only do restaurants fail all the time, but I see people open restaurants for the food that they want to cook, not the food that the community wants to consume and pay for. And like, that is the fastest way to fail in business is make some shit that nobody wants.
Yeah, I'll throw an example out from my own accounts. There are a lot of concepts in psychology that I'm really excited about and I would love to talk about. And when I try, they don't perform. No one cares. No one's listening. And I tell myself, Rikki, those topics are for you, right? Talk to your friends about that. Talk to your therapist friends about that. You really do have to pay attention to what people want and what the demand is and cater to it, unfortunately, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, listening to people, such a simple thing, but folks forget that. And, I am a former journalist, and that was my whole job, basically. You just listen to people. And I think people, as they step into this other realm where we're consuming media in ways like never before, where, like you said, Nic, people can make their own content. You don't have to go to the newspaper or the TV station anymore. It's like people just completely forget serving sometimes. So that basics of what you guys just talked about is, who am I trying to produce for? And I feel like that leads us down the next road that I want to ask you guys about, which is the authenticity part. And that's tough because there's nuance to that. There's folks who have a great message and then go through the struggle of I've got to get on camera or I've got to write and I can't make it relatable. It's being authentic is easy to some and harder for others. And I'm curious, we'll start with you again, Rikki, just how you go about coming off authentic to your audience as somebody who's like, hey, I like this girl. I feel like I know this girl.
Yeah, I appreciate the compliment quite a bit. I have been told that I come off as very authentic, so that's good. I think for me, just making sure that I'm talking every day about things that I truly do care about, that makes authenticity a lot easier. Trying to avoid the pitfall of worrying about looking too good or looking too polished. That helps with authenticity too. In the beginning, I remember I was scripting out all of my videos. I was really going overboard with the makeup and the filters, and that stuff, although it was performing, it wasn't getting the engagement that I wanted. And it really is true that the videos and content where I'm very much more stripped down and me and kind of awkward, there's a lot more engagement with that because people do want to see a real person, even if we think that we don't.
My bold glamour filter.
I love that filter, but yes, you should.
That's crack. It's dangerous. Stay away.
Yeah.
Nic, I know you support exactly what she says. You talk about that a lot, about just getting out there and not worrying too much about, hey, do I have this all lined out perfectly?
So, without going too far down my soapbox, I think that there's a couple things. One, I want to pay Rikki a huge compliment, which is it's easy to be authentic when you're coming from a place of actually wanting to help. And Rikki went through a lot of challenges herself in becoming the person she is today. And she started not to make $1 million, not to be a highly recognized. She started because she's like, it took me a long time to find this information. It didn't exist. And I found it. I feel obligated to share it. And then it resonated and people started asking questions. And so you felt compelled to continue. And yes, I knew you wanted to be an author. And yes, I think that there is something to be said for building a following and having, the opportunity to earn a living doing something you love. But it still comes back to, I'm fairly certain that if you never had to work another day in your life, you would still create a lot of the same content.
I'd still do this. I'd still do exactly this thing. Yeah. If $1 billion fell into my lap, I'd still be talking about this. So maybe that's a tough question for me to answer because I started from a place of authenticity. Not everyone's doing that online,
But okay, so here would be my argument for that. I think that there are some people who are bad people doing things for the wrong reasons online. That's absolutely true. But for the person who is wanting to grow their business by creating content, who's nervous about it, I feel like the lack of authenticity often comes out of fear. And it's this fear that what if I'm not good enough to share the information that I want to share? And so what happens, and I see this with clients all the time, I'm trying to talk a client through it, or I'm trying to talk somebody for to get on a call to do an interview. And Rikki, we had the same conversation just an hour ago about somebody who's a little bit leery of interviews and leery of this. And the thing is, most people do the same thing. As soon as I'm like, hey, you want to be on a podcast? Can I interview you? And they're like, I don't know. And it's like, oh, well, we'll record it. And if you don't like it, we'll just delete it and throw it away. And then the very next thing, they're like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nic Skovgaard from AlterEgo, and you're like, dude, that's not
right.
That's not you. That's not what you look like. It's not what you sound like. And I don't think they're doing it to be unauthentic. I think they're doing it because they see so many people who are 10 years ahead of them, 20 years ahead of them, who have degrees and followings and camera production crews and all this stuff. And they're going like, I want to start there. And no one starts there. Absolutely no one.
No.
And you've been in the media industry for a long time. I'm sure you looked up to some amazing journalists. None of those journalists started that good on day one. It just doesn't happen. Like,
no, it doesn't.
The process.
And I noticed that a lot, as a journalist, and to your guys' point about folks just feeling fear about commenting. I mean, a lot of the times you'd go and ask somebody, hey, can you do an interview? They say, no, that's great, but you should interview so-and-so over here. They're the better expert. There's always somebody better, but I'm like, just get out there. I mean, it's hard to get to that point though, because people just feel like, should I be the one talking about this? I mean, how do you guys get over that?
Mr. Beast has a great interview.
Everyone
you can find this interview online, and Mr. Beast has a great interview. And his interview is literally like, your first content is going to suck. It's going to be terrible. And so like Rikki, to your earlier comment about the accountant, like, I don't care what you make, right? You need to produce and publish 100 videos before anyone's going to care what you have to say. Like, you need to be banging through your first 100. And if you're good,
I'll give
you
you
can do
that.
100 videos in 100 days. And if you're nervous as hell, 100 videos might take you 5 years. I had a client say to me, he's hiring a social media director. And he said to me the other day, he goes, I don't need perfect. I need posted. And like, that's it. I don't need perfect. I need posted. I need somebody who understands that like there's a level of quality control. But if that quality control stops you from hitting the post button, you have failed at your job as a content creator, because you have to create content to be a content creator. But that's it. You have to hit publish and post.
I'm really glad that you said that. I realize now that the thing I said earlier might deter a lot of people from starting. For the first solid 6 months, and I posted every day, sometimes multiple times a day for the first 6 months, nobody was listening. Nobody was listening. And that's not
with a creative writing degree, as an expert in the field, who was spending a shit ton of time doing this, and who was a professional, highly paid graphic designer. Like, you had all of your dominoes, and still nobody was listening, right?
Yes. With
and like
60 books on relationship and attachment under my belt, nobody was listening. And that's not to say that my posts were getting 0 likes. I was going out and I was finding the people who were interested, and I was engaging with them. But it was a really slow start. And I look back on those posts, and they are embarrassingly bad.
Rikki,
it gets better.
I want to loop back around though, because like, not only did you have all of the dominoes stacked in your favor, you literally had every pedigree piece that would make you well qualified to do this, right? And you have been doing it for a long time. And we just had a conversation about, Jimmy on relationships, that like, he started after you and he rocketed past you. Like, he's not more qualified than you. He doesn't have more degrees than you. He doesn't have the design background that you have. He doesn't have the creative writing background that you have. And yet he shot past you. Some of it is like luck and finding the vein, and some of it is creating content. And I'm not saying that he got lucky. I'm just saying that like, having all the dominoes set up in your favor doesn't necessarily help. You have to hit post, and you have to see what works, and you have to find the audience that cares. And really, anyone has the capability for massive growth online. You won't know until you try.
Yeah, but maybe with the example of my podcast co-host Jimmy also, his accounts are far larger than mine now. Doesn't make me a failure. My audience is incredibly engaged, and so if you're hurting because you're comparing yourselves to people who are much farther along than you, remember that the audience that you're trying to engage with and help, they're there to see you. You have something important to say to them, And in that way, the numbers don't matter as much as you think they do.
Yeah.
As long as you're getting your message out there and you're helping who needs to be helped, that's what's really important. You don't need millions of followers to do that.
So I want to beeline really quickly, because there's one last thing that I want to say, which is, Rikki, I remember that when you were in Southern Illinois, we would go to chamber events and there'd be 20 or 30 people in the room, 50 people in the room. And like, if I would have said, hey, Rikki, I need you to stand up at the front of this chamber and talk about your book, whatever it is, you would absolutely have crapped your pants. And that's 50 people, right?
Yeah.
I just looked at a post of yours that had 202,000 views from within the last week. There's 200,000 people who've seen that. Your biggest post on TikTok is what, 3 million?
Yeah, close 3.7. No one's counting, but
it's only 0.7 million people. But like 3.7 million people have seen that TikTok. 3.7 million people have seen you talk to your phone camera. And like, you can't even wrap your brain around what 2,000 or 3,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 people would look like in an auditorium. Like the SIU arena doesn't hold anywhere near 50,000 people, and you've got 3.7 million people who have seen that one single video. And like, that's the thing that nobody understands, is they're like, oh, only 200 people saw my video. Holy shit, 200 people walk into the room and they're sitting around us while we're doing that podcast. I would feel more successful than at any other moment in my entire life. And that's 200 people. Your audience size doesn't matter. Your impact does.
I really thank you for saying that. I want to say the video that I posted today is stalled out at 7,000, and I was really bummed out. But if I stood in front of 7,000 people and they listened to what I had to say, that's not too shabby.
Yeah. Yeah. And not only that, but like those 7,000 people who saw that video almost certainly are 7,000 people who said, oh, that's Rikki talking about anxious attachment. I would like that content.
Or even better, I got something useful out of this.
Yeah.
This made my life measurably better for having listened to it.
Yeah. That's incredible.
And I'm curious if that's how it starts, is people getting something out of it. And where I'm going with that is like, not everybody will be viral or get the million views. And I'm curious, Rikki, how you built it, like back at the beginning when I'm talking like 500 followers, like how did you build from there? Because this process is a lot slower than people understand. And I'm just kind of curious how you went about it.
Yeah, I love talking about this. I'm a data nerd, so I love that a lot of these social media platforms will show you the back end of what you post something, and it shows you the metrics on who's watching and how long. And I just, even in the very, very beginning when no one was listening, I was paying attention. If I made my first initial 9 posts on the page, I watched them like a hawk. And the 2 posts that performed the best, I shifted all of the next 9 posts toward that style and that message. And then I watched those next 9 posts, and whichever ones performed the best, that's the way I shifted. So the entire building in the beginning was just a leaning towards everything that performed the best and absolutely scrapping what didn't. The other thing that I paid really close attention to is what was working for my competitors. So I was also watching their pages like a hawk and seeing, okay, I noticed that they just posted 3 videos. This one flopped and this one was great. What is it about this one that I think makes it different from these other 2? Why do I think it did better? I would read the comments on those videos that did well on my page or that did well on my competitors' pages. And I would see, what are people saying hit home for them about this? And I would write all of that stuff down. And I've just got a ridiculous amount of charts and notes in my journal about this is what people care about. This is what's important to them. This is what they need. And I just followed that relentlessly, throwing absolutely no care at the things that I wanted to make that I knew that people didn't care about. I don't want to be standing there talking about something that people don't care about. I want to talk about things that help them. So that's what I was following.
I have to know, why 9? What a specific number.
Oh, because back in 2020, right? on the Instagram grid, when you would pull up someone's page, I suppose it's still like this, but you see the top 9
Oh,
posts.
yeah.
So that's where I would go. So I'm not spending an hour.
I know you well enough to know that there was an exact reason for that weird
There is a
number,
reason for that.
9.
You're right.
I love that that's why, but immediately I was like, why 9? Why 9?
Yeah.
What's 9 have to do with anything? That's awesome.
Because I don't want to scroll through the competitors' feeds. I just want to look at the most recent up-to-date thing that they're doing, see it at a snapshot, make my deduction, and then move on to the next one.
Yeah.
And Nic, you're pretty big at looking at the competitors too. We've talked about that before. And it's like to be looking for ideas, because I feel like there is kind of a focus on, I've got to be unique and generate all my own stuff. And it's really not true. And I don't think there's any shame in looking at what your competitor does and making it your own.
I think I probably take that a step farther even, is like, I really believe that there is someone who is not as smart as you, who is not as well spoken as you, who is not as well educated as you, who isn't going to put in as much effort as you, who's absolutely kicking your ass online because they're doing it and you're waiting. And so like, I believe that like you can take content and make it relevant to your specific audience really easily. So like, let's say you're in the roofing business and you go find an account that has thousands and thousands of followers and they're in Florida, and in the back of every one of their posts are palm trees. If you're making almost the identical content, answering the same questions, helping the same people in the same way, but you're doing it in your area where you are an expert, where the rainfall's different, where the trees are different, where the ice is different, whatever it is, you can localize your content to your area of specialty. And that doesn't have to be geographic. It can also be taking something like, oh, I want to talk about, everyone who ever had a phone booth of any kind, and I'm only talking about red K6 phone booths from this specific era. Fine, take it and focus it, but niche down into that thing where someone isn't providing that level of content, and then flip it on its head and provide it in a different, unique way. Is like, Rikki, I think we talked about, like, when you started your journey with Anxious Hearts, you really looked at 2 pieces of content on a regular basis. Here's somebody who's creating good, entertaining, opinionated, helpful content that doesn't have a grounding in science expertise. They don't have a background. They're not explaining the concept. They're just going like, hey, Anna, you should do this. There's no why. Mm-hmm. And then the other one is you went out and you're like, Nic, there's all this information out here, these scientific research studies, these white papers, and they're written by like egghead science nerds on a white paper that are highly inaccessible, that you have to want to read. And these 2 things exist, but nobody's creating content that is easily consumable, that is easily digestible, that's actually helpful, that's actually expert science backed. Nobody's making that content, and I can do that. And I really believe that anyone in any business, all you have to do is filter through the smartest, the best advice, the latest piece of research, what you saw on the news story, and you filter that through your expertise and you explain it like you would explain it to a 6th grader, and you talk to that audience like you care about them. And there is an audience who needs that. And Rikki has the luxury of, not only did she find a need where there's fluffy content that doesn't have substance and technical content that doesn't have any like bedside manner, but she was also her audience at one point. So she was able to take both of those and filter it through the lens of like, I've been through this. I've read this content and I didn't think it was helpful. And I've read this content and found it hard to digest. So I made this content for you because you're on the same journey that I was on. And I think it will really help you. And immediately that is the formula for a great account.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That hopefully that message is encouraging to anyone who wants to make content, but they're looking at their heroes saying, I'm not as smart as them. I'm not as well researched. I'm not as experienced as them. I am not any of those things. Yeah, I'm not any of those things compared to any of my heroes. But what I am is somebody who knows intimately what it's like to be in the shoes of my audience, and I know what they need to hear in order to get that message.
Mm-hmm. And how necessary, do you guys think it is to share bits of yourself in the content. And this is kind of going back to authenticity. I feel like everyone has different opinions on that and the line you walk and like how much of your life, like
Anna's lobbing those hand grenades in where she knows we're going to fight.
I think we're about to fight, Nic. I can feel it. I can feel it coming. Could I start?
Yeah, please.
I know personally a lot of content creators who are 0% of their account, and they're doing great. They're doing great because it's the same thing. They've identified a need and they produce that for people, and they're not standing in front of their camera. They're just saying, I know what this audience wants and I'm putting it here for them. I'm reminded of meme accounts, right? These are people who you don't know if it's a male or female running the account, but they know I have kind of a twisted sense of humor. And I feel like a lot of people relate to that, and I can put up what works for them. People on YouTube who make money putting up a 10-hour-long video of white noise that they create or they find, they know, wow, this specific white noise helped me sleep really well. So I'm putting this up all day long and I'm making money from it. They're not on those videos, and that's just fine. There are definitely ways to succeed as long as you're listening to your audience, I think, and without you being the face of your brand or the thing.
Okay, so but
all right, Nic, that's my.
I want you to take it one step further though. Like, you are someone who believes in limited access to you because you are the face of your channel. You are the content creator. You are the author. You are the expert, and I know that you at least somewhat limit what you share on there as far as all of your content is designed to be helpful. It is only about you in the sense that it would be helpful to an audience member, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
I understand that process, but I fundamentally disagree with it across the board. I believe social media is designed to be social, and that I believe that people buy from people. And Rikki, I would literally challenge you. Don't make one single reel, because that's where your content lives. Don't make one single reel. Mm-hmm. But if you went to Instagram and posted stories where your stories were about some experience you had that is even slightly related to your content, but about you, and you did the same thing in a Facebook community, I believe that your core community would not only get stronger, but I believe that a lot more people would choose to spend money with you investing in buying your book.
It's possible that you're right, but at the same time, I think from a mental health standpoint, it's really important that we have. Oh, good. Yeah. Thank you, Nic. I think it's important that we have a certain separation. There are things that we should keep sacred and just for ourselves. Especially, I don't think we should feel pressured to put more of ourselves online than we're comfortable. That's not saying don't step outside of your comfort zone, but I am a much more private person than you are. And I do think that some people need to honor the fact that they don't want all their dirty laundry online, and that's okay too.
But I firmly believe in this idea of like, you know, that authenticity that I like, especially when it comes from a brand, is the little pullback behind the curtain that said, I don't always know what I'm doing, and we're not perfect, and we're not trying to represent that we are. You know, in your space, Rikki, I understand that there's always going to be a line of like, this is stuff that is for me. This is my relationship. I'm not going to share every piece of dirty laundry. But like, seriously, sure. you eating ice cream, you know, hanging out, doing something on the weekend, and doing that through stories or through, you know, those are really popular. Facebook stories have just exploded. Instagram stories follow the same pattern. That feeling like I know you as a person is what endears me to you. In as an audience, I really feel like when I have somebody who's an expert that I follow that gives me good information, and then I get to see or learn a little bit about who they are as a person. And even if they're inconsequential things, like you don't have to tell me who your mom is, you don't have to tell me all your deep dark secrets, you don't have to tell me about the latest fight you had with your boyfriend. I don't mean that. I mean literally anything about your lifestyle in general, what you do for fun, who you are as a human. I think that business owners miss the opportunity to share some of those stories too. And it is a teeter-totter. There is a line. I've met plenty of business owners who run a business account who share their kids' graduation and no one cares. I think that you have to walk that line very carefully, but I do think that authentic content about the content creator is valuable, especially in story form, because they expire and go away. You're not saying, hey, I'm great, you should, look up to me, you should think about me all the time. But that story of like, what does your day look like? That's amazing. Rikki, I think that if you did a behind the scenes of what a day in the life of Rikki looks like, of like, I wake up, I do this, I write a post, I post on TikTok, I post on Instagram, I write this content, I read this book, I wrote a chapter of my book, I did a podcast with Jimmy, and you told somebody like what a day in the life of your life looks like, I think that would do really well.
I agree that it would do well. I guess my argument is not all social media presences and posts are about the person I really truly do not want Anxious Hearts Guide, my page, to be people seeking me. Like the advice should be what stands. So I honestly don't want my followers to waste 2 minutes of their day learning about what kind of coffee I drink, which I don't, by the way, it's tea. But who cares? Who cares? Because really, I want them to be the focus. Even anything that I go through, I need that to be something that relates to and helps them. And I don't need them to see me crying in the shower over a fight with my boyfriend in order for them to relate to that. I feel like I can find ways to be a human and to be relatable without showing every little piece. I guess I encounter a lot of people online who push that authenticity and vulnerability to the extreme, and it feels very performative. I recently unfollowed a pseudo self-help therapy account because it was just a 2-minute post of her crying and talking about what she was upset about. Yeah, and it's really
cringe. I do the same thing too.
Totally.
Didn't mean to interrupt.
It's okay. See, I'm glad that you know what I'm talking about. And I do think you have to be a little bit careful, because a post where I'm like, here's my day, here's a day in the life of me, and sometimes I cry, it can start to feel incredibly, the aspect of that's cringe. My son loves that word, is that like, that's me trying to draw focus on myself and be a celebrity. And it really pushes away the focus that I'm trying to help you. It's like, everyone look at me, pay attention to me. And that's really far from what I personally am trying to do with my account. Works well for some people. But nobody loves Mr. Beast because of the vehicle that he gives away. He's the celebrity in the face, But I don't want to be like that.
The fastest way to solve that problem is you have to be creating the right content for the right reason. And if you're sharing content about what kind of coffee or tea you drink so that people are look at me, then it is the wrong content for the wrong reason. And if the thing that you're sharing is a day in the life of Rikki for the purpose to help people understand that you're not a celebrity, that you are a normal person, that you've designed a life where you can do the thing that you love and make enough money to get by, but you don't have a Lamborghini in your driveway. Like, some of that.
That's not a message I care to tell. I get it. And I'm sorry to interrupt, Nic. I just, for me, I don't care if people know what kind of car I drive. Nope. It doesn't matter if I have a Lamborghini. I don't. But if I did, I don't want anyone to see it, and I don't want to hide it either, because I want to talk about mental health and relationships.
Yeah.
And I do think for some people, showing yourself and that you're a regular person, that you're relatable, that's wonderful. But I definitely don't want people to feel like that's the only way, especially young people. I worry about that for my son, who's more than excited to give away his identity and his privacy in exchange for fame or follows or attention. So I just, from a mental health standpoint, I worry a little bit about the drive for everyone to be a celebrity.
Yeah.
It scares me.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys.
Anyway, but I think Nic and I agree more than we don't. I do, really.
You guys both make really good points. And I'm speaking from the perspective as an avid content consumer. And I think it's like the context. Like, I'm on TikTok and I do follow self-help. But if my self-help person changed the content and switched it to something that's like, I don't want to see your day, I'm going to cringe.
Yeah.
And then there's other people that will, I want to see that. I do want to know if they are drinking tea or coffee. It's simple, but like, it changes.
Elise Myers.
Oh, there you go, Nic. She's a favorite content creator.
Yeah,
you want to know what kind of tea she drinks, right? I'm saying I don't want my audience to know what kind of tea that I drink, and I think I can still help them a ton without that. So
I don't know about you, Anna, but now I'm dying to know what kind of tea she drinks. Because she told me to tell me, right? Now the curiosity is there.
This really is a great conversation. And it goes back kind of to my next point, which is how you guys deal with attention spans. And I can, just speaking personally as somebody who does content creation for a living, it can be so disappointing when you've got a story, but you're losing people. I know the data point they use now is after 6 seconds. And like, it really does boil down to that, is like hooking people. And we'll start with you, Rikki, and like, do you have those struggles, and what have you done to just like get people to watch almost?
Yeah, that's a tough one. The video I was talking about that bombed in the last 48 hours or so was a longer video. I think it was about 2 minutes of me talking about a psychology concept that was really important to me. And the feedback showed me people can't listen that long, or I just didn't hook them well enough in order to keep them around. And that's really depressing. But I think I do notice that when I write lots of things, if it's something that certainly took them 2 or 3 minutes to read, I've found that I tend to command attention better in my written word. And it's something I need to just pay attention to. Now, my podcast co-host, Jimmy, he's told me regularly that he's not a writer, but that man can get men and women to sit down for 6 minutes straight and watch his videos.
Yeah, but he also shows up in a wig and dressed like a woman and like has something inflammatory, and like his cover, like he has that hook model built and well refined, and you can see it in his content creation, that it's not an accident that the first 3 seconds of his video are really interesting, and like you're like, what? Wait, who is this guy, and why is he like, what's going on here? You want to finish that story.
Right. He's very entertaining. He's very naturally entertaining. I'm not naturally entertaining. I'm just not. And I think accepting our limitations and leaning into the things that we're really good at is not a terrible idea, especially for the small business owner accountant who's not going to be making videos like my buddy Jimmy. They're really not. They're not going to be as entertaining. Maybe they will, but most of them won't.
So, okay,
you don't know?
So here, I think that the reason why most people are so turned off on this is the formula is literally hook, story, offer. And it's not 6 seconds. It's not even 3. It's 1. You have 1 second to get someone's attention. And you know that you only have 1 second because when TikTok loads, it plays an ad. And the moment that ad is really well polished and produced and it looks like a Cadillac commercial for the Super Bowl, 1 second swipe, like you're gone instantaneously because you don't want to watch ads on TikTok. And so like the attention span is super small. But the reason why so many people are turned off on this is like the hook, story, offer model that is so prevalent. The people who don't do it well, the places where you can see it being done are almost always done in a tacky way. And so the example I'm going to give is a tacky example, but it's the clearest example of how it works. And it's like the BuzzFeed article is like the top 7 places to eat in New York. You won't believe number 5. And like that is exactly the formula of how you hook someone in, because your brain is going, well, what's number 5? And now you have to watch 4 to get to 5. There's no other option. And so that hook or lead in, and then they have something called micro hooks, which is just something along the like, hey, I'm going to tell you a story and the end really surprised me. You hear that used, and as soon as you can decode it and see it done, and then you see it done by somebody who's good at it and who's doing it for the right reasons, not in a smarmy way, then you understand the value. But it's this idea of how do you get and keep attention? So the rule that I've heard is 1, hook, story, offer is the formula. 2 is literally the first second is all you have. So if you don't have a great thumbnail and a great immediate opening hook that grabs someone's attention, you've already lost them. And then the last piece is that when you get into that content creation is like they say something's supposed to happen on screen every 3 seconds. And so like when you watch people do this, it'll zoom in, it'll cut, it'll have a graphic, it'll have a sound effect, it'll do something. But every 3 seconds through an entire video, something should be happening to disrupt the boring viewing pattern, because as long like at second 4, you swipe.
Right. That's so depressing.
But
it's true from a psychology standpoint.
But I think that the thing that is not depressing about that is like, I think that when you see it done in an icky way, you're like, that is depressing. But the thing is like, look at old movies. If you go back to like, 1950s movies or something, they would hold on a single frame for like 60 freaking seconds. And then you go
go back to 80s or 90s movies. I try to watch old movies with my son, and they're even too slow for him.
And it's wild, but their attention spans are so fast. It's like it has to move. And like all of the movies are doing it, all of the content is doing it. And like if the best producers on the planet are doing it, I guarantee you, if you go watch the latest Taylor Swift, movie in the theater right now that's blowing the doors off everything, there is no chance in hell there's one camera in the back of the studio shooting Taylor Swift performing a 6-minute song. It ain't fucking happening. Like there's just no way. It's clipping every single 3 seconds to show something new and engaging. And if it's the camera's not moving, she is.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I know. And it's like the whole other debate is the good and bad of that, and the ethics and the struggles of it, and how information gets warped. That's a whole other discussion. And
thank you for adding that. Yes, it is. It does. It's hard as a content creator to know that in order to succeed and get ahead, you have to contribute to that. And that's what depresses me.
Why?
I'm not saying it doesn't work. It works great.
Why?
But so does gambling.
Why does it depress you that Mr. Beast can command the attention of every 7-year-old on the planet, and yet their teacher at school can't? Because they're not presenting the information in a consumable format that the kid wants to consume and feels like they're engaged with. I think
sugar tastes a lot better than broccoli too, and it's not necessarily the best thing for us. Content that is nonstop, snap like that, I feel like it's wearing on our dopamine. From a psychology standpoint, it's depressing. From a marketing standpoint, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of straddling both.
Yeah, and get off my lawn, kids.
I know.
Your loud music and your saggy pants.
From the
Let's
journal.
not talk about it from psychology. Let's talk about it from a marketing standpoint then. They're very, very different worlds there.
No, I hear you guys. No, I'll add really quick from journalism too. Sometimes it feels like you're leading people on. As somebody that I had to contribute to those teases you see in the news when they're like, you guys know what I'm talking about. And they're often misleading. I am speaking for one industry, but they're very misleading. And I'm like, we got people to watch, and we kept the numbers up, and that means more money for advertising. By the time they got to me, the measly reporter with the story, I'm like, I'm sorry, it's not that exciting.
But you're here. Yeah.
But that's specific to one industry. So I think that's a great debate, though. Good conversations. And as we kind of wrap up our hour here, I just want to ask one more question to you guys. And you guys have addressed this throughout, but it really is just a couple key points of getting the confidence to do this. And, more specific than just like, hey, just getting out there, but small ways you guys amp yourself up, I guess, how do you be your own hype person?
Yeah, that's a great question. I save the messages from people that let me know things are helpful. Man, those are a huge boost in times where I'm wondering, is anybody reading this stuff? Is anyone watching? I also try to tell myself, the mission that I started out with was that I told myself, if this stuff helps one person, it's worth it. And I try to tell myself that every single day when it is depressing, when things don't seem to work out, when book sales aren't that great, or I try to keep my mission in mind and my purpose for doing this.
I don't think I could agree with that more. Rikki, you were along the whole journey with me where the quote actually came from, but the secret to life is to put so much good out in the world that it can't help but find its way back to you. And I really, really believe that the clarifying piece for me personally is this idea of like trust the process. Like, that if you go to the gym and you work out really, really hard for 8 hours, you're not going to have a six pack. But that if you go to the gym every single day for a year and you eat healthy and you work out and you try, you're going to be better than where you started. And I think that everyone knows how to do the hard things in their life, everyone. And if content creation is something you want to do, you already know the formula. You know that you have to provide value. You know you have to look at what's working and what's not. You know that you're going to not have it perfect day one. You know you're going to flub your words and have to recut and have to edit. And you're going to have to upgrade your microphone or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, you fundamentally know that there is a certain path you have to take to improve and to grow. And if your mission is to help people, if your mission is to make people aware of your business or the services that you offer or the difference you make, you're going to accomplish it on a long enough timeline. And if you compare yourself to the person who has $50 million and 100,000 followers or 100 million followers or whatever it is, you're always going to be disappointed.
Yes. Well said. Mm-hmm.
I think that so many people are afraid to start because they want to start at year 10. And there's so many people psych themselves out because they go to the gym for 8 hours and they don't have a six pack and they can't figure out why. And it's that doesn't work. So when you have the hard days, find what motivates you. And if it's your mom or if it's your sister or if it's somebody, you keep the messages. So Rikki, to sort of parallel you, I have a folder on my phone and it's full of screenshots, and it's literally the folder's called The Secret to Life. And it is screenshots of every single time somebody sent me a text message and said you made a difference for me.
That's great.
You had an impact on me. And so I've just learned that I can screenshot those on social media or on text message or a voicemail transcription of somebody who says something kind. And I think my number is 54 right now, but that's enough, right?
That's great. That's a huge amount.
When I started, I was after one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Nic, you're going to love this because we talk about this one a lot. Sometimes on the days it's hard to make content, I remember also that I'm making content for younger Rikki. I think of myself where I was at 5 years ago, and my goal was to be somebody that could help her.
Yeah.
And so that's who I try to talk to every day, just who I was 5 years ago, because there's got to be other people out there in that same spot.
And you are.
Thanks, Nic. Thank you.
Well, I love that, guys. You got me feeling all inspired now. So I'm going to go implement some of your tips.
Awesome.
Well, this was fun. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Anna.
Bye.